Hello, welcome everybody to Noticias de Talking Madrid. This is going to be the first episode. I'm going to be trying to do this daily. It is about 5:24 my time, a little early for me, but I'm going to try to get the news out, seeing how the tabloids and the trades are up in Spain. I just kind of wanted to speak about how does everyone feel about yesterday? Um, I did release like a 15-minute kind of somewhat of a rant of the entire season and the situations that we are currently in, and how I felt about the coach, how I felt about the players, the president, and even the fans. It was hard as a Real Madrid fan to see all these remontada posts, TikToks, and Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. Um, just because I felt like while yes we are Madridistas, yes we are Real Madrid fans, I felt like a lot of that kind of set us up. Um, yeah, I just feel like it set us up for embarrassment because I don't believe at any point this season have we played a single full coherent game of football. You know, anytime we played well, it was always in spurts about like 20 to 25 minutes. So what I thought was going to happen ultimately ended up happening, especially with Ancelotti's the way that he set up our team. I just don't understand how you can continue to play Alaba at left back at his age with his injury record. I was actually a little surprised about Lucas Vasquez. I thought Lucas Vasquez actually had a decent match yesterday. I thought he did pretty well with Martinelli, and I almost say at points he almost did better than Valverde with that matchup. But um, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about how everyone feels about the game yesterday, what the fallout is, as well as kind of speak about what the trades are saying today. Quite a bit of news. I don't want to bury the lead, but it looks like Ancelotti will not be managing Madrid after the Copa del Rey final. It looks like from the trades from Marca that he won't last the entire season. And I'm a little worried about that because I'm worried about who his replacement might be. It may be someone in house. And if it's someone in house, I believe it's going to be Raul. And with what I've heard and what his personality is, especially with Castilla, I don't believe that he will leave the position. I do think that Raul, while has an excellent record with the Castilla and La Fabrica, I definitely would like Javi Alonso or Klopp. There's a lot of rumors about Klopp. I don't know where that started from, but I can only dream. I believe that he can get the best out of these players, especially if Trent Alexander-Arnold will be joining the club. I think we just need a new voice. I do think that the Germans, the way that German managers and German teams play Spanish teams, I do think that it favors the Germans, and that's why I think that Hansi Flick, when they hired Hansi Flick, and they let go of Xavi last season, I was a little concerned because I remember those Bayern teams under Hansi Flick, and they always did damage. Um, but like I said, I don't want to bury the lead. Let's go take a look at the match ratings again. I was very harsh on the players yesterday and the manager, but now with a little bit more time to reflect, I think I'm going to give them a little bit more grace. At least I'm going to give grace to. I think Thibaut Courtois was obviously the best player, our best player, both legs, saved us from a crazy drumming. 5-1 is generous to Arsenal. Courtois had multiple saves. I thought that Alba was probably our weakest link in the back four. Like I said, he was put in a rock and a hard place. He just came back from his ACL injury. He was out for 18 months, came back, was forced into a game, and then had an overload, and then forced into another game. I think for Valencia, he played for 45 minutes, was taken off, and then once again, he was put in a place where he had to go face one of the most informed right wingers, even though SACKED has come back from an injury. Antonio Rudiger, we've been running this guy into the ground for the last 3 years. I don't know what to say. He continually is playing with an injury. His legs are always wrapped. He hasn't been at his best, but like I said, he's 33, 34 years old, and we've been playing him game in, game out when we had a lot. I mean, we've had Asensio, we've had some of the Castilla players that could have come up, and Chouameni could have been utilized as a center back to help him with some of this fatigue. But Ancelotti likes his favorites, and that has put us in a position to where Rudiger pretty much is just playing, average. Raul Asensio, this was his biggest match probably in his career. I thought that the penalty they gave for him in that foul against Marino, I thought that was pretty soft. But you live with those kind of things. He's young. This is his biggest game at the Santiago Bernabéu, and the amount of pressure that was heaped on him to be able to excel in this team has been immense. And I thought he handled himself well. I'm a little surprised about that 6.3, but I'm assuming that's just because he's the one who caused the penalty. Like I said, Lucas Vasquez 7.0. I think that's fairly decent. He was probably the best one out of our back four. I'd probably give that to Asensio, but Lucas Vasquez, I don't think put very many feet wrong, at least in the defensive aspect. We could speak about obviously going forward, but I thought he did pretty well with Martinelli up until, I think he was pulled off by then. But yeah, I thought he did pretty well against Martinelli. Didn't really see much of Martinelli unless there was an overload with Declan and Martinelli on that one side. He crossed a lot. I don't know. I guess that was the game plan for Ancelotti. I think Ancelotti spoke at the presser in between. After the first game loss, the first leg loss, and he said, "Oh yeah, he knows what he knows what to do. He knows how to beat Arsenal." And I guess that meant was incessant crossing to our front line that has not scored a header since like maybe 2022 against Man City. So they just kind of spammed crosses. Vasquez showed support to Rodrigo if needed be. He was always an outlet. And that was one of the things I think that we were sorely missing when this season, especially because like we don't have someone who continually and routinely able to make those long 40-yard diagonal balls like Toni Kroos. Sometimes Rudiger tries, but they're a little bit too loopy, and it kind of defeats the purpose because the defender or the fullback gets there in time, and we pretty much lose possession, and and there's a transition there, or our players aren't confident enough to go actually and hit that ball. Jude tries to do it a few times. You know, Asensio can do it, but he doesn't do it often. Rudiger does it probably the most. And like I said, it's usually just too lofted up or is misplaced or whatnot. I think Valverde had a decent match. The thing is like Valverde is like I feel like we've put it like because he's so talented and because he is like a jack of all trades and similar to Jude, I feel like Ancelotti has abused that and has made it to the point where like there some games are on the left, some games like they're on the right, some games are playing D mid, sometimes they're playing left wing back, other games they're playing right back. And like I feel Valverde this season, while he has been immense in the positions that he's been asked to play in, I don't think he has improved in any of them. Maybe right back, but even still, when he was going up against like a decent or competent left wing, we saw problems there, and that could be down to the fact that they're just so fatigued because they play it a game in and game out, and they're injured, and they're probably like at like 70% efficiency. But like I said, with that, like with Fede Valverde and Tchouaméni, I feel it because of the fact that they haven't played together in that pivot this year very often. Is some like there will be times when we need to play out of the back, and then Courtois has the ball, and Rudiger and Asensio will have gone wide to give width to open up passing lanes, and then you need your defensive mid to come in and ask for the ball to be able to beat that first line of pressure. And many times, I saw them, and I'll probably do a game analysis if you guys care or not. But if you rewatch the game, you could see that Tchouaméni and Fede Valverde often were looking at each other to collect the ball. And within doing so, Arsenal's press they're so organized and they're so well drilled. Like their press pushes forward, obviously. And then Courtois has to play a ball out to Vinicius or play out a ball to Rodrigo, who has Lewis Skelly on them, or Jurriën Timber or Saliba ready for Mbappe. And then once again, they get the ball again just because of how intense and how high up their press is. Tchouaméni was sorely missed in the first leg, and he's probably our best defensive player that we have in our midfield. He's huge. He's imposing. I wish he would impose himself a little bit more, especially with his athletic frame. But, that hasn't been asked of him, it seems, from the coaching staff. But he made some great defensive interventions all throughout the game. And it would have been great to see if we had both Tchouaméni and Camavinga somewhere in this lineup. But obviously, the yellow cards gave Camavinga the suspension, so we weren't able to see that. But I thought Tchouaméni played pretty well. He played pretty decent and did a good enough somewhat of a good enough job. I wish one thing about Chouameni that he can learn is to be able to pick up the ball from the center back more often and be an outlet pass, especially when there's lines of pressure. And I feel like that comes even with recognition of being a pro. I believe that should come normally, but also instruction from the coach and being able to talk about build up play in zone two and all that great stuff. Um, but like I said, hopefully, there will be additions come the summer. It's not hopefully, there needs to be, or we're about to have another drought because we cannot continue to play this way. Jude Bellingham is 6.7, clearly frustrated, clearly fatigued, asking to do all the dirty work for Mbappe and Vinicius at times, being dragged all the way left to help support Alaba against Saka. Odegaard and Saka causing overloads on the right side of the pitch, causing Jude to continually be back there to help cover, and then asking him to run all the way forward to come help support the attackers. It's just like I think like once again, Ancelotti has kind of abused the fact that Jude is such a workhorse and he can play in so many positions, and I feel like asking someone to do that, to do all the running 2 years in a row is just not tenable. Especially, he used to have a partner in Valverde that would help him out in this aspect in the midfield, but Valverde has been tasked to be the right back many times. So it's just Jude running back and forth, and you can see many times in the game he's so visibly fatigued, and he's so visibly agitated. There's been a lot of times he's been demonstrative against Vinicius, and he's asking him to run, or Vinicius is taking on two players at once or three players at once, and just runs into a cul-de-sac, and they lose the ball, and then he doesn't run back, and he's complaining, and you could see that Jude is just so tired. And I can see, I watch the game, I watch every single game, and I watch him, and I can just see it. He's just like when he's getting instructions from Ancelotti now, there's videos kind of ruminating like with Ancelotti giving instructions to Camavinga and Jude Bellingham, and they both look at him and they're just both kind of tired with his tactics and asking him to sit back, and just you can just see that the team clearly doesn't have direction, and with the direction that they are being given, they're not resonating with it. I do think that the locker is somewhat gone, and I definitely believe that there is time for change. I think there's a time of change. I believed since last year that the cycle ended and it should have been ended on a fairy note, like a fairy tale note. Instead, now we've persisted for this for another year. And now we're about to crash out of all three competitions, and there's going to be stain. Obviously, Carlo's legacy will always be his legacy. I think the most winningest coach in European history. I believe he's won, I think, seven, right? Seven Champions Leagues, I want to say, as a player and a coach. And was one of the most Champions Leagues, or close to the most here at Madrid. Not the most, maybe what is tied with it on, right? But this end of it's just hopefully it doesn't get ugly. I think a club of our stature will not make this ugly. I think we will respect Carlo Ancelotti. Well, we'll see what the reports say, but I do believe that he should leave graciously, and even if he has his contract he has one more year in his contract, I do believe that he probably should resign. Just for the sake of his own reputation and the reputation of the club and everything like that. Before I leave this, Kylian Mbappe got injured. He didn't do much of anything. He still does not understand how to play striker. I don't know how so many players in the front three between Rodrigo, Mbappe, and Vinicius continue to say that Ronaldo is their hero and the one that they looked up to and they watched, and then they go and put performances like this. Ronaldo was the man for the big occasion. Ronaldo would, take on the responsibility of the team and drag them forward with effort, and playing for the badge. And I feel like I don't know if Mbappe understands what that is yet. I don't know. He still, for me, feels like I don't know. I don't know how to accurately say it, but it doesn't feel like he is like a Madridista yet. Yes, he scored 33 goals in all competitions this year. We won't speak about the nature of some of those goals. I'm just happy that he's scoring because I would like him to get to the best of his ability like he was at PSG. I don't know if it's a mental thing, and it probably is. Obviously, it's his first season. Not everyone is able to acclimate as well as Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham is a mental giant for how he was able to come from. He went from, England to Germany, then to Spain. into the biggest and the most pressurized team in the world. And he did it effortlessly, and he did it with stride, and he continues to do so, and he continues to show leadership qualities. And Mbappe, it may take a little bit more, especially with all the drama that had at PSG with the World Cup, not having like a really good preseason because of the Euros. I just feel like all these players are fatigued. There's too many games. There was not enough rotation from Carlo Ancelotti. And it gets to the point where you mentally and physically fatigued, and you can't just ask them to do remontadas time and time again, especially if they have no tactics. They're just out there playing. And I think we're in the age of systems, this age of schemes, the age of tactics. And I believe that a lot of these young managers have gone through the school of Pep, or this tactics have evolved. And if you don't evolve with it, or at least have a structure in place and to allow your talents to be able then, to do the genius that they have, you're going to be systematically defeated. And I want to give praise to Arteta. I want to give praise to the Arsenal team. Um, they played the perfect game. Arteta played the perfect game. He called Ancelotti's bluff. He believed in his back line. He believed in his defensive structure. He believed in his build-up play. Um, you know, he essentially asked Lewis Skelly to become part of his double pivot with Partey, and asked Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard to be part of the front three. So they routinely played with a three. They played with a 3-2-5 the entire game, and completely overloaded the midfield, with Marino obviously playing pretty much as a false number 9, and we couldn't adjust to it. We couldn't adjust to it because we haven't seen it before, and the coach wasn't giving kind of any instructions. In cases like that, you have to ask Kylian Mbappe to either to tuck back in so that he can help disrupt the Partey and Lewis Skelly being able to receive the ball from Raya, or you needed to ask Vasquez, or you had to call their bluff and do the same thing. You either ask Alaba, who's probably better on the ball, to either invert when we're in our build-up phase, and just go toe to toe with them, or what? You're gonna keep Alaba back there and Vasquez back there because you're so scared of Martinelli and Saka. What about us? What about our players? What about Vinicius and Rodrigo, who on paper are better than both of them, talent-wise? If that's the case, we'll go beat for beat and see who has the better talent. But we just kind of accepted the fact that they'll have 5 strikers, and that was it. That was the game. That was the game in the first half, or the first leg. But anyways, that's enough of that. Those are my thoughts right after, the morning after. I was so disgusted with the performance that we have. This is another European embarrassment, another embarrassment that we've given these EPL fans to talk crazy about us. Teams with 0 European history are now beating their chest. This was their trophy. And this is one of the things about being a Real Madrid fan, where so many of these teams, teams will like to downplay Real Madrid. They'll say we don't play well. We play in a farmers league, even though there's a new La Liga champion literally every year, and Man City has won like 6 out of the last 7. Like I don't even know what they're whatever. It's a farmers league. There's only 3 good teams in there, even though most of European competitions are won by Spanish teams, historically. But you given them ammo. This is essentially their trophy. The amount of videos, the amount of content from all these YouTube channels, all these fan channels, all the BBC, Sky Sports, TNT, Sports, CBS, the amount of videos, ESPN FC, all the videos and all these big media outlets were cherishing the fact that they can make content out of Real Madrid, because obviously we get the clicks. We're the big boys on the hill. We're the club that we are the zenith. This is exactly where most clubs want to be. And we give them ammo. We give them ammo for an entire year. We give them an ammo for the entire year, unless we do something magical, unless we do something that I think we can do with different leadership and with a few signings here and there. That we have the Club World Cup. I'm not exactly sure what teams. I know Barcelona's not in it, and I think PSG's in it. I believe Man City might be in it. But we have a real opportunity. We have a real opportunity to go to that tournament in the United States and win that. There's a huge prize pool. Obviously, the Americans love Real Madrid. Real Madrid and Barcelona, obviously, are the biggest names over there. But Real Madrid always sells out their games. I tried buying tickets and it's ridiculously expensive, and they're pretty much all sold out. Um, but we have an opportunity to get that 130. I think it's 138 million. It's just the pot for the tournament, as well as the imaging rights that we'll get over there, merchandise sales, and all that. That can help subsidize the loss that we got from this Champions League run. We made $1 billion in profit, says the club. I don't know where that goes. I don't know, and hopefully, I mean, the board will never tell us. Florentino Perez will never tell us, but with everything that's going on with the stadiums and how we've had to stop concerts, I believe I think she had to cancel all her tour dates in Madrid. I believe that we have to go to court because of the noise ordinance. I don't know how much is going into that. I don't know how much we need to pay back from our loan, and that's put us into a position where we have to literally go and beg players to pretty much run down their contracts. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but my club acts like they're broke. My club acts like they're broke, but we make the most in profit and the most revenue. Um, so there's that. So that's it. That's all I have to say about the Arsenal game. Well played, Arsenal. Um, you guys believed. A lot of your fan channels believed, and guess what? You had to believe. Just like Thierry Henry said, you have to believe that you can do it, and you guys did it. And you thoroughly embarrassed us, Carlo Ancelotti, with another disaster class European night. So really quick, I want to talk about this article. I thought the message will be clear. It's time for Ancelotti to move on. This was something that I've been saying since last season. If you've seen the channel, you've seen anime content, I continually tell you guys that I thought that the honeymoon would have been for him to move on last year, to get a send off from at the Bernabeu after winning the Champions League and the league. After the two parades that we had, was to leave with Tony Cruz, to leave with Nacho, to leave with Joselu. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So now here we are a year later, and without Tony Cruz, we don't have anyone. We don't have someone to essentially build up play for us. I remember there were many articles from the assistant coaches that used to say that Tony Cruz was essentially the coach on the field, and I believe that's very evident. Because without him, I mean, it's the same people minus Tony Cruz. The same people minus Tony Cruz. And we had one team that was able to put coherent matches together at the tail end of the season, the business end of the season, and go and win the league, to win the league out. Copa del Rey, obviously, we understand what Copa del Rey is to Real Madrid. Like the fact that we're in the final, that's, since what was it, since 2014? Is that the year we won? 2013? Or what's the one where Gareth Bale, what was that, 2014 or 2015? The one where Gareth Bale beat Mark Bartra down the line and then toe poked it. Whatever that was like the last time I think we were in the final. But yeah, so I just wanted to take out this quote from Julian Laurens. I know he's a journalist. I think he has a podcast on ESPN FC. I think he does it with Gab Marcotti, where he essentially said there was no plan tactically. It was an absolute mess. They have to change. They have to change their policy and their manager. Guillaume Balaguer admitted that the warning signs have been there for months. Their Champions League elimination at the hands of Arsenal feels like a reckoning, the culmination of a season where, despite results, things have often looked off. Every match has been a grind. This Real Madrid side has looked like a team running on fumes. Change has already started for the next season. Trent Alexander-Arnold looks set to arrive for Liverpool in the summer, from Liverpool, while there could be some high-profile exits to follow. They need to make big calls now. Do you keep Vinicius Jr.? What do you do with Rodrigo? It cannot continue because that front four cannot work together. And then he continued. Balaguer continued to say, "The squad that needs new energy. Tony Cruz has never truly been replaced. The midfield lacks control. Luka Modric remains a legend. The need for someone who can control the tempo without being 39 years old is obvious." And then I think lastly, I want to note here that it says that the club has to face hard decisions this summer. Modric and Lucas Vazquez contracts may not be renewed. David Alaba, if a good offer comes in, could be allowed to leave. And I thought that was pretty telling. And the thing is, this wasn't a surprise. If you've watched Real Madrid this entire season, it's been about suffering. Right, there's a meme that goes on where it's like, yeah, you wait all week to watch Real Madrid. You're super excited. The whistle blows. You're suffering for 80 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes we pull something out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to be a Real Madrid fan again. you watch the games week in and week out. You watch them every midweek. You watch them every weekend, and it's just not. There's been no improvement. There's been no improvement since game one. No one understands what they're doing. There's no patterns of play. There's no tactics. I don't know what they do in training. You see the rondos. You see the shots on goal. Is that what it is? But anyways, I'm not going to go there. But I'm going to go back to what they're essentially saying that there has to be change, and there needs to be big profile names out. And I'm gonna have a hot take here. I think that if you get an offer of 300 million plus for Vinicius Jr., I think you take it. I think if Saudi Arabia is still sniffing around for Vinicius Jr. and they're giving you 300 plus 400, there was a talks like I think a billion. I think you have to take it. You know, you take it because you could. Vinicius, I love Vinicius for everything that he's done. As he came through the ranks, as a young Brazilian and going through everything that he's done in La Liga, with all the racist chants and all the abuse that he gets from the referees and them not calling fouls and then the crazy things, all of that entire mess. I'm 100% on board. I think it's despicable. I think that the Spanish RFF and La Liga have been cowardly in their approach and the fact that they don't actually want to talk about what is going on in their field and allowing the stigma and reputation of Spain to be that of racism. And clearly, because you won't do anything about it or you don't have the balls to speak up on it, I think is embarrassing, and I think it's a tarnish on La Liga, and especially for any player of color who wants to go there, and you're allowing them to say chants that are saying death or hanging players or monkey noises and bananas. It's ridiculous. But with that being said, if you're getting an offer of 300 million plus, I think you take that deal. I think you need to take that deal to rejuvenate and get the club back to where it is. Respectfully, like I said, love Vinicius Jr., but there was a time before Vinicius Jr., and there was no player that is above the club. I don't know what happened. I don't know, maybe with all this social media now, like you have all these player FCs. You have Vinny FCs, you have Mbappe FC fans fighting online. I was like, I don't even understand what all that is. I'm here and I support the club. And if 300 million can help rejuvenate whatever it's going on in the background, whether that has to do with the stadium, to pay off the stadium, to pay off the loans, to pay off the court cases, I think we have to do that. But if not, if I had the opportunity, if the offer wasn't there, I would clearly say, keep Vinicius. I think there needs to be a conversation about Rodrigo though. I haven't pulled up his stats yet for this year, but one of the things is that Rodrigo with both of these legs has completely been anonymous. In this entire season, he really is anonymous. There's many times he continues to say, like, don't forget the R, don't forget me in the front three. But unfortunately, he never puts the numbers up or the displays consistently enough to be remembered. He does the whole John Cena thing where, you can't see me. But the matter of the fact is, like, we don't see him. I don't see him. He just hangs out on the right and is completely nullified all game. There's no point in having Rodrigo in. And obviously, Ancelotti won't be here next season. But even for the game yesterday, I would have rather had another midfielder in. Have another midfielder. And instead of us going and doing what we did and crossing the ball into nobody, because Kylian Mbappe he's not making runs into the box. He's trying to collect the ball on top of the box and trying to curl it or do a step over and then hit it. He doesn't know how to make, front post runs, back post runs, make multiple moves in the box to be able to get onto a cutback. I don't know. He just does not know how to play. I don't know what has happened to Mbappe. But also, like I said, with Rodrigo, he's just the least effective player on the pitch, and he doesn't do much. We don't put him into positions where he can be good. There's no Toni Kroos to be able to send a 40-yard diagonal for him to be 1v1 with the left back and go at them and to make a difference. No, it just pass, sideways pass to Rodrigo. Then Rodrigo has a 2v1, and then he has to pass back to Vasquez, who passes back to Valverde, and then they go all the way around once again. I think Rodrigo has one. I think if a good offer comes for Rodrigo, I think it happens this year. I think if you get an offer of at least 80 mil, I think Real Madrid has to take it. Because this front three that Florentino Perez has this front three that he's constructed. It doesn't work, and it may work with a different manager, and it may not. I think I don't know. I don't know if a 4-3-3 is good. I think you need to start being a little bit more creative in how you do it. It may be 4-3-3 on lineup, but it shouldn't be that on the field, because currently in the moment we have too many good players in the midfield. We have too many good players in the midfield that can't be benched. Like, you can't bench Valverde. He's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite. He's a club favorite. He's a Florentino favorite. You can't bench Jude. Jude is the player that you should build this team around for the foreseeable future, for the next decade. Tchouaméni, you need a defensive mid, because Valverde is not a defensive mid. He's an 8. Tchouaméni, to be honest, all of our defensive mids are number 8s. They all operate as number 8s. Camavinga is not a defensive mid by trade. He's an 8. He's a ball progressor. Tchouaméni is also a pretty decent ball progressor. Jude can play pretty much anywhere in the midfield, and I think actually Jude is really more of an 8, but he could play the 10. And he's like the best 10 we have besides Luka Modric at this moment. But Luka Modric, like I said, he's 40 years old. But yeah, so I think Rodrigo kind of loses out here. And what this fact is that, you have Arda Güler, who could probably Arda Güler has so much talent on the ball, and he can strike the ball so well, and he seems to be a player that is really good with key passes and slipping players in. In a change of system, you might see that, a coach might prefer Arda Güler to be the one right behind the striker to play those balls into Vinicius, or play those balls into Kylian Mbappe. But those are just some of my thoughts. But I thought this article was pretty good. I obviously give it a read. It's on BBC Sport. But there needs to be a conversation about Alaba, and there needs to be wholesale changes. I think Luka Modric, this has to be the last season with Luka Modric. And I'm a little hesitant to say that, just because of the fact is we're losing all of our players that went through the three-peat and have the Real Madrid DNA. I think this year we were sorely missing Carvajal and Militao in the locker room, because Carvajal, as you see, I think he's actually he's facing almost a 4-match ban because of his with him and Saka in the tunnel. But Carvajal has that fight. Modric was part of the team that has that fight. We lost Ramos. We lost Casemiro. We don't have Ronaldo. Benzema's no longer there. The only one that I see that has the fight is Jude. And maybe Thibaut Courtois. Alaba is another one. Alaba's contract, we have to dump his contract. His contract, I think, is like 350 plus. I think he's closer to 400,000 euros every week. That contract is devastating. We have to get rid of that contract. We have to get rid of it. Modric is good, but we have to start, we have to make a decision here. We're keeping Modric, or we're going to try to cultivate and promote Arda Güler. If you're not going to play Arda Güler, this second season has been a waste. We've wasted Arda Güler this entire season, because Ancelotti will not play him for the life of him. I understand that, he thinks that, his physicality, he needs to work on his physicality. He needs to be better, when on the ball. But I also feel bad because you don't get playing time, and the time that you do get, you have to maximize that. And most oftentimes, he looks to score. He'll look to shoot for himself to be able to prove to the coach, like, yes, I can be in this position. I've done it before with the limited amount of minutes that you had in his debut season. But he's also been asked to essentially play a right wing back to help support Vasquez most of the time. That is not his position. He's better. He's pretty much, his position is where Rodrigo plays right now. And I dare say he probably would do a better job, honestly, because he can cut in onto his left foot and be able to whip a ball in back post. He can be able to cut in onto his left and play Mbappe in between the center back and then the left back. He can once again go onto his left, and we see this trademark far post shot. He has a great shot and probably the best technique on the team, in terms of, probably in just terms of ball playing and ball striking. So that's something that we need to discuss. Luka Modric, once again, I think he should retire. That's the thing. Luka Modric doesn't want to retire. I think he's actually going to try to play in the next World Cup. So what does that mean? I think if Luka Modric is afforded the opportunity, he's going to continue to renew until he plays that World Cup. But I also have to think about the teams like, is this what we want? Do like we have like he's a legend and you have to respect that, but it's almost like at some point someone has to make the call here and be like, what are we doing with Arda Güler? Because we have the likes of Brahim Diaz, we have the likes of Arda Güler, and you have Nico Paz, who is killing it in Serie A with Como. I think there's some hard conversations that need to be had. We have a collection of quality midfielders and not enough spots. In my opinion, I think that Alaba needs to leave. I think you give Militao another season to see how he goes through with injury. I don't know if he starts, but I think you give him that because once again, we rushed him back from injury and essentially we just pretty much caused him to get another ACL tear. Alaba goes. I think Modric should retire this year, and it's been amazing, but the minutes are becoming less and less. And even this year, his role has been pretty much 20 minutes. 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and is only going to get, less and less. Lucas Vasquez, another one that needs to go since the one that, when we had the 3-peat in the Champions League, from the great PKs that he's done. He's been a servant of Madrid, but I think that Ancelotti has essentially put him in a lose-lose situation where he was completely exposed this entire season to the point where his contract renewal has essentially at a standstill at this point. And reports have come out that it looks like both Modric and Vasquez's contract renewals have been stalled and are not going to happen. So like once again, another player that, if Vasquez still feels like he still has it in him to continue, then go get a bag in Saudi Arabia. I wish that, he gets a proper send off like Toni Kroos, but it might, for the sake of his career and, his life outside of football, maybe Saudi Arabia is the best place to go. Head up Ronaldo. Ronaldo needs more help at Al Nassr. Head up Ronaldo, head up Joselu, head up Nacho. And thank you so much for your service. So the next one I want to talk about is Carlo Ancelotti will not finish the season at Real Madrid. He will lead the team in the Copa del Rey final next week. Then he'll immediately leave and will not finish La Liga. I don't know how true this is. This doesn't seem like something that Real Madrid would do. But I have to take into consideration the fact is that we have a Club World Cup. We have a Club World Cup where we could be the first winners of this new edition of the Club World Cup. There's a huge prize pool, jersey sales, and all eyes on us. All eyes on this tournament for this summer. This tournament is so late into the transfer window that this is essentially preseason, right? This is going to be our preseason, and then it's going to lead us into this next season. And this next season, we cannot have another terror season like we had this season. I don't think the fans will accept it this time. The board better not accept it. And then obviously Florentino Perez. I believe if we go trophyless this year, and I pray that Barcelona does not get the treble. And if they get the treble, that is where I think Perez will make wholesale changes and all those big decisions, will be made. But like I said, I think this is because we can't go with Carlo Ancelotti in as our manager for the Club World Cup. We need to win that tournament. We need to have a good showing. We need to see new patterns in play. We need to see a new coach with new tactics being implemented at this tournament because our team, we have a solid team, but we just don't have the tactics. If we had Arteta as our manager for this tie against Arsenal, we would have won this. We would have won this tie. We would have won this tie, but we didn't. We had Ancelotti, we had vibes, we had eyebrow raises, and we had cigarettes. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm of two ways. I think that we should respect Ancelotti for everything that he's done, but also I'm ready to start something new. I think that his time has come. Like I said, I've repeated time and time again. We need to respect the manager, but his time has come. And there's a lot of reports about him, in Brazil. I'm a little skeptical about that because once again, Brazil doesn't look like they have tactics, and then you're going to hire a manager who also does not have tactics. So good luck, Brazil. I don't know if you know what you guys are doing. I think you guys are going through some sort of a crisis right now, with the identity of a Brazilian talent. I think you have a bunch of Brazilian talent. I just think they're going to Europe too soon. But anyways, I would love to see this. I would love to see Xabi Alonso, or I would love to see Klopp or Inzaghi coach this team. I would like to see them get the players that they need before this, like a Dean Huijsen, who is begging Real Madrid. Trent Alexander-Arnold. I definitely think we need a controller in the midfield. There are reports of McAllister. I have no clue why, because he's not a controller. He is almost like our Valverde at Liverpool, so I don't know where those reports are. I don't know what our board is doing. I don't know what our scouting report is doing, or our scouting team is doing. But Zubimendi is literally right there. And if Zubimendi is not going to work, then get Enzo Fernandez. Enzo Fernandez is the closest one. Trent and Enzo Fernandez are the closest one for progressive passes and being able to control the tempo, control the ball and possession. And we need players like that to help, because Danny Ceballos, I believe, is 28 going on 29, and he is very injury prone. And as soon as Danny Ceballos leaves, we have no one else to help us control the ball, and then we're right back where we're at. So with that saying, Carlo, thank you for everything. You have, if you can pull something off, I'm going to do a video about this Copa del Rey final and probably the tactics and the lineups that I believe that we need to employ for us to be successful against Barcelona. We've played them twice already this year. They've embarrassed us both times. The first time we played them, I felt like we had so many opportunities to expose their high line. It's just that Mbappe does not know how to play number 9. I don't know. I don't understand. It's very confusing to me. If he doesn't know how to curl his runs, he doesn't know how to check his runs. I don't know. But we should have been up in that game. We should have won. So the frailties are there. There's been enough prep for us to see how they play. We should be able to come up with a plan, especially if we know that we're going to play them. I'm not exactly sure what the date is. Is this going to be like next Saturday or so? We have a whole week. Our team should literally be watching how even Dortmund played them today. 2 days ago. Dortmund beat them 3-1. So I want to do a video next week. Look out for that. It'll be on the YouTube channels. I'll link the video on X on what we should do with this. And hopefully Ancelotti can pull out a little bit of magic so we can at least come out here with nothing. But I'm not looking forward to this Copa del Rey final. I know that they're gearing up for it. I know that they've been waiting for years, because we've been dog walking them for the past 3 years. I know that they're waiting for this game. So hopefully we get some kind of trophy here, and so Ancelotti can leave with his head kind of held up high. And we'll see what happens in La Liga. La Liga, we're going to have to beat them, or we're going to have to beat Barcelona at some point. We're going to have to beat them in La Liga, and then we're going to have to hope that they flounder at some point, because they're going to be focusing on all three of these competitions. And that's our only way we can win La Liga. But like I said, I don't know. I guess the only thing that we could say is Ceballos is back. That can help us with more control in the midfield. Tchouameni, Camavinga, Valverde. Alaba. Maybe you can play Alaba against some of these lower level teams, but Fran Garcia, he didn't have much yesterday as well. So we'll see. Yeah. So the trades are just pretty much coming out and saying it was just a dream. The trades, AS, Os, Dario, Os, Marca, ESPN, Partido, all those trades were saying remontada. I don't know why we haven't shown anything of note to say that we can do a remontada against a competent team. We've lost against every decent team that we played. So now that they are saying it was all a dream, I think it's just kind of disingenuous. They're just trying to sell clicks. The actual people who watch Real Madrid knew that this wasn't going to happen. You couldn't say it out loud because you're Madridista, but he's like, we knew. So, all I can say is we go again. There's going to be a lot of conversation about this guy, Kylian Mbappe. There's going to be a lot of conversation here, because your PSG team is about to go to the semifinals against Arsenal and are probably the favorites of that, and will be in the finals. So we'll get there. Kylian Mbappe is a doubt for the Copa del Rey final versus Barcelona, and this was reported by L'Equipe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe hopefully he can be You know what? This game probably should be started by Endrick. Endrick is an actual classical nine and knows what runs to make, and he's in the box. He's green. He's unpredictable. He's wild, and that can cause, I think, a lot of damage to this Barcelona team, especially with the fact that they play with such a high line. There's not a lot of film on Endrick, and Endrick, like I said, is a wild card. He'll shoot from anywhere, and he has a powerful shot. I think he actually has better technique than Mbappe as well, too, when shooting. So I think that, if you're gonna play this game, I think that you start maybe Endrick and Vinicius. You have to control the midfield, so I think you need to play with four. I think you need to play with it's Danny Ceballos, Chouameni. You play with Ceballos, Chouameni. You play with Jude Bellingham. And I guess you could play Valverde, I guess. You could play Valverde in the midfield, and then you can have Vasquez. I thought he did well enough. But if you're going to play against Rafinha, maybe you have Valverde in the back, and you either ask then Camavinga to come in as a four, ask Jude to be the second striker behind pretty much behind Endrick, or be one of the attackers as an advanced number 10. And then you ask Valverde if it went in the build-up phase to invert. I think that's probably would be a better lineup than having Rodrigo in, because Rodrigo at this current moment, I think, is just devoid of confidence. He's ineffectual. He doesn't really do much scoring wise. Everyone can run, so just defending, that's just everyone can run and defend. So it's not that much of a skill. So I think maybe Rodrigo is probably better as an impact sub at this point, especially with this coach. In the case that Kylian Mbappe cannot play. If Kylian Mbappe is somewhat, injured and not fully fit, then have him come in the 60th minute. Fresh Mbappe legs, 60th minute, 65th minute, can, terrorize a back line, especially because they don't have Balde, too. They don't have Balde on that left side. I think he's out for the foreseeable future. Once again, just talking about Real Madrid against Arsenal. There's a report from Opta analysts where they did a lot of data, and they said that Real Madrid's total of 33 open play crosses against Arsenal last night was their most in the competitive match in 5 years. 33 open play crosses, literally to no one. 15% accuracy. So it didn't work all game, and we continue to do so time and time again. And this was Ancelotti's master plan, and this is how he said that we were going to be able to beat Arsenal. We were going to cross to our non-existent forwards, and we're going to cross the ball to Mbappe, who I've never seen him score a header. Vinicius, I think he scored a header last season. I think one of these crosses was to Endrick in the 65th or 70th minute. Pointless, absolutely pointless. And I think it just kind of shows. Ancelotti, I think, is past it. Especially, I don't think he can't lead this team forward anymore. So I don't want to harp on it anymore. There's no point. Another damning statistic was the fact that Real Madrid players run 21.2 kilometers less than Arsenal in both legs. I think that kind of tells the tale right there. Saka, Martinelli were back in their own 18 defending as a team, and Vinicius and Mbappe couldn't leave the center circle. Vinicius a little bit in the second leg. The first leg he did not. Mbappe did not. Same thing with Mbappe. There's so many videos of Mbappe not running at PSG, and that was a problem. You have videos of Lucho telling Mbappe to run. He doesn't want to do it. I think there needs to be, like I said, a new voice to be able to tell Mbappe, hey, you run or you're off. And I don't know if any coach will ever have that much strength. I think Mourinho would have had that strength. I don't know whomever's coming in has the strength to go and pull Mbappe off. But I think Mbappe needs to understand this is Real Madrid and this is not PSG. You're the prince and king of PSG, but you haven't done anything. You have done shit all for us here. We win trophies here. We're you can have players who, you can have one player on the team who doesn't run, and that was Cristiano Ronaldo, because Cristiano Ronaldo would go run on the opposite side and score three goals. He will go score when we need someone to score. He will win us games. That was the only person who can do it. But Mbappe is not Ronaldo. And we have two players who think that they're Ronaldo, but they're not even Ronaldo light, with Vinicius and Mbappe. Both of them are, I think, are jockeying to be that guy. They want to be the Ronaldo of the team, and yet neither of them have the quality to do so. So something needs to change. And like I said, with a new voice, new manager, um, someone willing to make the hard decisions, someone that is willing to give up this fatherly role and friend of the team kind of persona like Carlo likes to do and be like a disciplinarian. Could you imagine Jose Mourinho with the team? I could only imagine with Mourinho with his team. The counterattacks would have been deadly. But we're getting down to it. The fans of the Bernabeu were whistling Kylian when he came off injured. Like I said, like you couldn't really hear it on my broadcast. I think I was broadcasting it. I think it was CBS Sports or Paramount. I couldn't hear anyone whistling. I was like, what has happened to my club? What has happened to my club? There used to be days where I used to watch Champions League and we're down like 2-0, I think to Schalke and stuff like that, and I could hear the entire stadium whistling, all the players whistling, the entire team. And then I remember like Ronaldo, I think scored 2 goals, or I think he scored a hat trick or something like that in the tie that ended up winning it. But he would go and apologize to the fans. He would go apologize to the fans of the stadium and ask for forgiveness. Nowadays, our players are so small and are so spineless that they'll just go and they'll go straight to the locker room. I think Thibaut, I think Bellingham said sorry. I think Thibaut Courtois spoke to the fans after and did the presser after. Very few of them ever take responsibility and speak to the presser. All you get is Instagram quotes. It's shameless. And I don't know if it's this generation of footballers who just go on Instagram and that's all they do. Instagram posts, Instagram models. We'll get them remontada. We came in early. We don't want a remontada. Just play well. You don't need to hype us up. Hype yourself up. Do something. Make the difference. This is Real Madrid, and so many of them, like I said, thank you, 2 Champions Leagues, but 2 Champions League is not enough. If that's enough for you, thank you, goodbye. You don't get 2 and then you coast. We had players like Luka Modric with 5, 6. They even forget how many Champions League they won. You continually go and go and go and go. That is the standard here. And if you're cool with 2, cool, bet. You say that you want more, it doesn't show in the play. I don't see you running. I don't see you dying for the badge. The only one I see dying for the badge is Valverde and Bellingham and Courtois and Rudiger and Asensio. Those are the only ones. The only ones that can lift their head up high. The rest of you is embarrassing. It was shambolic. And wholesale changes need to be made. Yeah, just like I said, continuing here, just more. I did not recognize this Real Madrid team. I don't know if the players are hurt. I don't know if the players are as hurt as the Madrid fans. And I think this just goes back to the fact that we're just so mentally fatigued and physically fatigued that our team that did not have another year. Arsenal were raring for this. They saw the remontada posts. They made it personal, and we couldn't match their energy. We couldn't match their defensive structure. We couldn't match them tactically. So that's what it is, 5-1, another European defeat. And then it's the last one from Relevo. I'm not exactly sure too much about this. They're not that reliable. But Carlo Ancelotti already knows that he's on his way out. There are doubts about him taking the team to the Club World Cup. I spoke about this ad nauseum already. I don't think that he'll be here much longer. I respect everything that he's done for the club, but I think this is it. I think his time has come. And hopefully, he can pull, a rabbit out of the hat for this last match against Barcelona. I haven't seen anything to suggest so. I'm hoping that pride as a Real Madrid player, as a Madridista, and it being in a final, after being embarrassed in the last 2 games, that they can show some grit, they can show some resolve, they can show, the Madridista, the Madridismo of the club and the team. But we'll see. This coaching staff hasn't shown that they're able to tactically be able to beat Hansi Flick. I believe that. I think it's very easy. I think you need to take off one of the attackers. You need more balance in the midfield. You need to ask Valverde to invert when he has a chance, and then on defense, obviously, to come back. You need to play through Jude. You need to be physical in the midfield and just hit them on the counters. Mbappe needs to check his runs. If Mbappe's not going to be playing, you got to tell Endrick what you need from him and ask him. You know, he can make those runs. We've seen it before. Copa del Rey, that's his competition, and maybe, you know, Bobby can pull something out. So that's it. I think I've spoken at length here. Thank you so much for everyone watching. You know, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think about, you know, the match yesterday. What do you guys think about Carlo potentially leaving before the Club World Cup? Tell me what you guys think about the renewals or the lack of renewals with Vasquez, with Modric, with Alaba. What do you guys think about us as a club moving forward, especially with the fact is, like, you know, it seems like we don't want to sign anyone. We have all this profit, but apparently we don't have this profit. I know. Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for all future notifications. I'm going to be trying to do this every morning with the trades, just kind of give you a little bit of news. I know I kind of stretched this out because this was somewhat of a post-match reaction from the embarrassing defeat that we had in the Champions League. I don't think we've been knocked out of this phase since, I think, in the last 20 years or something like that. This is like shades of losing to Marseille. But yeah, thank you so much for everybody. You know, check out the videos on the channel, Talkin Madrid on all socials, Talkin Madrid clips if you want clips, and other videos from the streams if you don't want to listen to full three hours. And I appreciate